Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypno-coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my professional work, check out my website that I'll tag at the end of this video. Today, I want to discuss impulse control and a trick that we can use to achieve it. A lot of people have trouble controlling their impulses. They make rash or unwise decisions. They don't think through the longer term consequences of their behavior, and they do things that might feel good in the moment, but that don't actually serve them well. An example might be compulsive shopping. I actually know someone who routinely gets high by going to the mall. This person actually acquires so much stuff that this person hides the purchases from their marital partner. And eventually, it's going to be found out. And the partner is going to discover that there's a list of credit cards they knew nothing about that are all maxed out because all this stuff has been purchased that's hidden away somewhere. Gambling is another example. When my father was alive, he used to take me to Atlantic City to the casinos there for fun. Now, I don't much like gambling. I don't oppose it. I just don't much enjoy it. But I do like casinos because they typically have fine dining restaurants and they have good shows. When I go to, say, Las Vegas, I might invest $20 in a slot machine for an entire week's visit. But I will go to the shows, I'll go to the fine restaurants, I'll have a good time. But what I've noticed is that without fail, whenever I've been in a casino, I've seen people who are obviously gambling with money they couldn't afford to lose because they're walking around shell-shocked, obviously desperate, in some cases in tears. That's a problem with impulse control. People who enjoy gambling as recreation know how much they can afford to lose before they set foot on the casino floor, and when they've lost that, they stop. They don't keep on gambling. They control their impulses. Philosophers who study such matters will often ask someone if a planned behavior is something that will lead to happiness or is it something that will lead merely to pleasure. Getting drunk leads to pleasure, at least in the short term, but rarely to happiness in the long term. A romantic or sexual fling might lead to pleasure, but seldom results in a happier or simpler life. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against pleasure. I'm not a Puritan who thinks that anything one enjoys is bad or sinful. I think that orientation, which is far too common in the United States because of our Puritan beginnings, is unhealthy. I think that the world is full of good things. There's much that we should enjoy, and I'm a big fan of what I call wise indulgence. And I think our spiritual lives and our day-to-day lives overlap, and we should enjoy the wonderful world that we move in as we move through this place of space and time. The best of all possible worlds is a situation where what gives us pleasure also moves us in the direction of happiness. As an example, I'm a serious foodie, a former chef. Fine dining and fine cuisine gives me pleasure. But because it's also part of an enjoyable hobby, I read cookbooks for pleasure and watch cooking shows for enjoyment. This activity of fine cuisine and fine dining doesn't just give me pleasure, it also brings me towards happiness because it's embedded in something larger. An activity about which I'm passionate that provides a counterpoint to the stresses of my professional work. and that gives me an overall sense of enjoyment in my life. I have certain health challenges, and as a result, my cooking requires certain dietary disciplines to be observed. I enjoy finding ways to do them in a way that still allows me to set a magnificent table. And when I succeed, I feel insufferably clever. So my enjoyment of this pleasurable activity also gives me happiness. It improves my self-image. It provides a meaningful outlet for stress and stress relief for me. That's the goal, where things that bring you pleasure also bring you happiness. The danger is in pursuing pleasure as an end in itself, an overfocus that can easily lead to addiction. I'm sure we've all heard stories of someone who had a good career, a family, someone who loved them, who traded all of that in for a glassine envelope full of heroin and a set of works. Hard to understand that way of thinking, but there are some people who simply can't control the impulse. And so seeking the immediate pleasure outweighs the long-term harm. We don't want to go there. One way we can engage in pleasurable activities that also encourage our happiness, rather than taking us away from it, is to be aware of what we need to be happy. What does happiness mean to you? Everyone should have at least a sense of how they would answer that question, and I'm always surprised how few truly do. I've had people tell me, oh, well, just acquiring large sums of money would bring me both pleasure and happiness, but that's not true. If all you want to do is get a lot of money, you can go rob a bank. The fact that you don't want to go rob a bank indicates that the money isn't the thing that brings happiness. There's something else that's even more logically primitive. Now, usually when you push on this, you discover that what a person needs to be happy is a sense of purpose, or as they say in positive psychology, something that they need for flourishing, the sense that they're being all that they could be. What helps me with this is the Stoic philosophical theme of memento mori, and I have another video on it here. But it simply means remembering that we all will die. There will be a time when you are no longer on this earth. What do you want your life to have been about? Was it just about dissipation, terminal recreation, pointless activities, or does it actually have a meaning larger than that? Philosophers will sometimes distinguish between things that give pleasure versus things that convey a sense of meaning. People who describe themselves as having a life where they're happy tend to rank pretty high on the meaning scale. They think their lives have had or are having some sort of meaning. Perhaps that's something they accomplished, a family they raised, acts of kindness they've been able to do, and so on. If you know what gives your life meaning, you know what gives your life happiness, because the ideas are linked. So, how does one find what the meaning of one's life should be? And the answer to that question is you experiment until you land on a solution. You experiment wisely. Obviously, drug taking is unlikely to have positive outcomes, and a small amount of research will show you what the risks are. But the thing is that we acquire our sense of purpose on the backswing while doing something else. We do something and then discover it makes us feel fulfilled. Not just that it may be pleasant or lucrative, but it makes us happy. So we quickly discover that taking a substance may give us pleasure, but doesn't produce an overall lift for the rest of our life. It doesn't make us happy. But perhaps Volunteering at an animal shelter does. Because when we go home from our shift at that shelter, we think about all of those animals that we've helped, all of those hearts that we've helped uplift. To make this discovery, what makes you happy, requires experimentation, a willingness to think outside the box, to try some different things and discover what makes you happy. There isn't a firm rule about what that would be beyond using common sense. Maybe becoming one of the world's foremost experts in the mating habits of poisonous frogs will turn out to be your thing. But you will know it when you find it, and you'll be glad you did. If you never chase your happiness, you'll never catch it. And you chase it by being willing to conduct wise experimentation. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. If I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or my Patreon channel. Stay well and stay safe.